People who are chasing extrinsic goals, such as things like fame or wealth or accolades, trophies, whatever it is, they actually are the ones to experience higher levels of depression, anxiety, or burnout. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Now What podcast. I'm your host, Sierra Stout. I'm so glad you're here. And before we get started, I would really appreciate it if you could go ahead and hit that subscribe button or follow wherever you're listening. It really helps this content get pushed out more and more to people like you and me who need to hear it. And today we are going to be redefining what success is. What is winning in life? I know that as athletes, we've spent a lot of time and a lot of years measuring our success off of statistics, off of performance, off of what our coaches think of us, off of what our parents think of us, and the amount of wins and trophies and accolades that we've attained. But what happens when your sport's gone and then you no longer have those things to prove yourself or be successful in? I think that if you've ever felt lost, especially since your sport came to an end with finding areas to be successful in, then this episode will probably be pretty helpful for you, because we are going to be talking about redefining success and moving from proving yourself to becoming yourself. So I'm so glad you're here, and let's dive right in. So first and foremost, I just want to leave a disclaimer that anything we talk about on this podcast is being talked about because most likely I've lived it and I've walked through it, and so I'm carrying that empathy with you. I'm not talking at you, I'm talking to you, and just know that you're not alone. So I just want to share with you guys a little backstory with my journey and when my sport came to an end. And I know that I wrestled a lot with success and wins, and when I didn't have those avenues to be successful in, it was hard for me to figure out, well, then what is my worth? Who am I without it? And now what do I do? And I know that this transition out of sports really hit me emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I think spiritually was one of the hardest ones for me, mainly because I realized how much my identity and my worth and my value was coming from these extrinsic things instead of internal things that actually had deeper meaning. And I know that I would often carry my worth from how well I did that day, or how my coaches thought of me, or what my teammates thought of me, etc. And that gets old over time. It wears on you when you feel like you're working so hard and then you're never enough. And those were the battles that I was fighting in my mind. And so that grief of leaving behind a performance-based identity is pretty hard. And I think with that performance-based identity, you also begin to grieve the fact that you weren't resting in something more secure during that time. I know that after it was over for me, I realized how much that I was finding my value and worth in something that didn't actually matter. And I was kicking myself for some time at why the heck I wasn't able to just enjoy things in a different way or measure my success in more meaningful things. And of course, you can't go backwards. We can only learn and go forwards. But I'm grateful to see that now. And so my hope is that if you're in that and you're in the spiraling season, or maybe you're removed and it's bringing things back up, that we can work through this a lot quicker, because I know that it definitely stole things from me, such as my joy and my peace, and I really don't want that for you. So that is the purpose behind this episode. All right, y'all. So I just want to share this quote as I was processing and figuring out what success actually meant. And that was, you used to chase medals and now you chase meaning. Now I know that sounds really stupid and kind of cliche, but man, you chase meaning. Are you chasing things that are meaningful? And I was like, well, dang, I have not been chasing things that are meaningful for the past X amount of years, and that's really frustrating. I thought that my sport was my entire well-being, my entire worth, and all of the things. And so as I was living, breathing, and dying off of this performance-based identity, it really wrecked me when I realized that I was not chasing meaningful things. So if you can relate to that, you're not alone. But I was doing some research, and this is really interesting. It said that People who are chasing extrinsic goals, such as things like fame or wealth or accolades, trophies, whatever it is, they actually are the ones to experience higher levels of depression, anxiety, or burnout. And then the light bulb started going off in my head. Well, of course I've been struggling with depression. Well, of course I've been struggling with anxiety. And of course I've been experiencing burnout like none other. Why? Because I wasn't chasing anything that was meaningful. I was chasing all these worldly things that weren't actually going to give me value. I think athletes especially, we're conditioned to see success as an output and performance oriented and not in our identity and our health. And so when this performance goal orientation happens, it leads us into rumination, shame, perfectionism, and even procrastination. So when the game ends, there's this big self-worth gap that we fall into, which if you haven't already, you can go listen to that whole episode that we did on identity crisis. But you're probably going to feel unworthy. You're probably going to feel like you're not producing enough things to receive validation or whatever it is that you feel like you're lacking. And it's not just mental. This affects your physical health and your motivation as well. So if you can relate to this and you've been dealing with these extrinsic goals and values and the way that you define success, well, it's time for us to break that off because we need to figure out what's actually meaningful in your life and in your world and see how you can start moving towards those things instead. With that, the first thing that we need to do is reframe. We need to come up with a reframe and this new definition of success, right? So success and the definition of it, it's allowed to change. I think success from when we're younger at 2, 3, and 4 years old is different than when we're 7, 8, and 9 or 15, 16, 17. You know, it's like it changes over time and that's okay. It's allowed to happen. So now that the new season you're in, give yourself permission to change your definition of success, to change the way that you see it. And now you can move towards it in an entirely new way. For me, success now looks like peace. Success looks like meaningful conversation and connection. It looks like doing something that I believe in, even if nobody is watching. I was getting my master's a couple years ago in Christian ministry, and I had this one class, and we read the book called The Good Life. And I'll link it down in the show description because it was an unbelievable book, and honestly, I think one of my favorite reads ever. And I remember them unpacking this idea of virtues and vices in life. And really quickly, I'm just going to break this down for you, but virtues are the good things. They're the good things that you go towards and you lean in with that keep you on the good side and finding the good life, right? And then you have vices on the other side, which are actually things that are pulling you away from the good things, from the good life. And I began to think about this when my sport came to an end, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, my sport actually became a vice for me because I was living, breathing, and dying off of it instead of allowing it to be looked at in a healthy way. And I was so wrapped up in this performance and goal orientation that it actually began to hurt me. And so as I noticed that that became a vice for me, it was pulling me away from the good life, from the good, meaningful things. And so I just want to encourage you to find the virtues and find your vices and separate them and figure out ways that you can begin to lean in with the virtues, because I think those will help you define what success actually is and allow you to measure it a lot more appropriately. So with that, I just want to encourage you guys to go from this perspective of performance to this perspective of purpose. Success used to be performance, but now success is based on your purpose. So what is meaningful in your world? What gives you purpose? Let me ask you a question. What if the best success that you ever experience is not actually how well you performed in your sport, is not based on the amount of games that you won, is not based on the amount of trophies that you attained, but it's actually determined on how well you loved people or how well you live in alignment with these virtues? What if it's coming from how well you're growing from the inside out? I wish somebody would have told me that, and I wish that I would have been in a better place to understand that when I was still competing in my sport, because I think one thing that hurts me the most is to know that I was living and defining success in my world and my life based off of how well I was performing rather than how well I was loving people. So it's time to take action. If you guys have been listening to these episodes so far, you know that I like to offer some practicals at the end because it's great to hear all these things, but then it's like, how do I apply this? How do I begin to work towards this? Now, what do I do? And so I'm going to give you guys some journal prompts. And if you're in a place to pause this and write it down, let's do it. If not, you can always come back. But one thing that I want you to write is, what makes me feel alive now? What is it? What is it that makes you tick? What is it that gives you purpose and makes you feel excited and feel joy? Write that down and unpack it. The next question is, what values do I want to live by in this new chapter of my life? I think that goes back to the whole virtues and vices that I was talking about, but what are those values? What is it that's going to keep you on track to define success off of? And third, what would success look like if nobody else saw it? What is that? I encourage you to write those down, reflect on them, and I want you to also write down the goals that you have. Write them down, all of them. I don't care what it looks like. And then I want you to see, are these external validation driven or are they internally meaningful? And if you find that more of them are coming from this external validation, maybe think through those a little deeper and find a way to rewrite them to how they will become internally meaningful rather than externally driven. So what that probably will look like for you is stats and accolades will now become peace and health. Maybe you used to want approval and applause and now you want fulfillment. Or you wanted to be the best at your sport, and now maybe you just want to work on becoming whole, a whole version of yourself, and a lot less like the one that you used to be. So I just want to leave you all with this. This chapter of your life may feel a lot quieter. There might not be as much noise and joy and fulfillment in this one area that you used to define success off of, but that quietness and the stillness, I actually think will be really beneficial for you because it might allow you to get real and honest with yourself, which will give time for healing. And redefining success is not the end of your story. It's actually just the start of you writing your new one, which is not, again, diminishing the old part, but it's just stepping into this new season with a lot more joy and a lot more fulfillment in the things that actually matter in life. So I just want to leave you all with this. This chapter might be quieter. This season of life might be quieter because you're not living and performing and finding success in the ways that you used to determine it off of, and instead you're having space to heal, you're having space to reflect, and I think that that's really going to be helpful for you in this season. But I just want to encourage you that redefining success is not the end of your story. It's actually the start of a new one, which I am believing is going to be really healthy and really beautiful for you. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for being here. Again, if you have not already, give this video a thumbs up wherever you're listening. Make sure you subscribe or follow. It helps push this content out to more and more people like you and I who need to hear it. Share it with an old teammate or a friend that you know may find value in it. And just thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode of the Now What Podcast.